mic on? All right, good. So thanks for having me here. I realized that I'm one of the last presenters, so I actually spoke to the mob. There's a mob in Seattle. They're going to pump some oxygen in, keep you guys awake, and kind of a casino atmosphere. No, there's no Seattle mob, but I'm gonna try to keep it really fun and really lively, and hopefully get you guys excited about the opportunities in gaming. Which for me, I'm kind of a gaming geek. I've been playing games for years, and any Twisted Metal 2 fans out there? That was one of my favorite games ever. All right, we got a couple. I must have wasted I don't know how many months of my life when I was 13 playing that game. But I want to, essentially my goal today is to help you guys understand what I believe will attract brand advertisers. And when I talk about brand advertisers, I'm not talking about any advertisers. I'm talking about the true big brands in the world. Coke, Nestle, Pepsi, Bounty, P&G in general, Secret, etc. So how do you attract those kinds of brands? What are they interested in? What are they used to buying? What do they want to see from gaming, which is quickly becoming a medium that is mass market through devices such as Facebook, mobile, etc., as you guys know. And just the other day, I was actually on the WB lot, and it was actually interesting because, TV folks are nervous about things like mobile devices taking audiences away, but they also see gaming as a massive opportunity, which I was delighted to hear. Things like gaming are opportunity for everyone, not just, specifically users, not just specifically advertisers, but the general public. So a couple things I wanted to touch on. I really want you guys to be able to walk away from this presentation, hopefully with some of the experience which I've had over the last few years. I was at AppSavvy for a few years and was instrumental in some of the earliest partnerships into Zynga games, as well as Living Social and Booyah and Playdom and Playfish, and I got brands into those games in a way which was really unique and is now being call it scaled up through Keep with technology. So the things that you need to focus on is really what is unique about gaming. So what I think is unique about gaming is there's a couple set of emotions which you don't see anywhere else. One of them is when you're playing Twisted Metal 2 or a first-person shooter, and you're in the middle of the game and you're on the verge of an epic win, and you probably look something like this. You're not blinking, you're completely focused. It was funny, just the other day I actually met with a company that makes video game glasses because users don't really even blink half the time when they're playing the game. They're so focused. So, eyewear and all this kind of stuff is apparently a concern. So, there may be an opportunity there. But essentially, people are so focused in their games that they really don't even blink at times. So intense engagement. Again, you guys know this, right? But it is unique to gaming. When you think of, television, for example, which was monetized in one way, people are sitting back and kind of leaning back and doing this, right? It's a very passive experience. So in a passive experience, I might tolerate a brand getting in my face and interrupting me much more than I would in a game. If you're in the middle of that epic win, you don't care about anything else going on. Even if there's a billboard in the back of the screen, which are in a lot of games now, you probably aren't going to notice that, and you definitely aren't going to take action against it. So number one, anything that we do to attract brands in games in order to drive true engagement and impact, I believe, cannot be at the moment where your user is completely focused. That's number one. So it's going to have to come at a moment where there's a natural break in the activity. The second thing, which I think is really unique to gaming, is the epic win. I'm sure all of you have experienced the epic win. I remember one, Street Fighter was another game that I played when I was a kid, and I got stuck on Sagat for like weeks. I could not beat him. I don't know if anyone else got stuck on Sagat, but I did. And I remember, and when you finally get past that boss or that tough level, you do a tiger fist pump, or you do a dance move, or you jump for joy. It's a big moment of happiness for the user. So there are opportunities out there that maybe get the natural break part right, but then they show the user an ad potentially at the wrong moment where they're happy. like that's not a moment where I want to see an ad. So it's a very you could potentially ruin what's so great about games by doing the wrong thing with that specific moment. So I wanted to intro with that, and then I'm going to go into the slides a little bit further. But I want you guys to think about that when we look at various advertising opportunities over time and what's available now, because there are probably hundreds of people that are here today that can give you a big check to be a part of your games, but not all of them can attract brands because they can't get impact and awareness right, and they can't get response right because they're not doing the right thing. So when you're evaluating your potential vendors, I want you to focus on what makes gaming unique. So, it's come a long way. Advertising in games has never been bigger than it is today. But what I think is interesting is that it's sort of been a slow growth. And in the arcade world, we all had great times with our friends, and it was not a completely ad-free environment. Certainly, there were probably posters and billboards around the arcade, but the games themselves were ad-free. And then we went into the casual gaming world, and it started to become a little bit more mass market, and there was an opportunity to reach larger audiences. We've seen things like achievement systems being implemented, where there's potentially a moment there where brands could play a role. Xbox achievements, I think, are a really interesting functionality because they capture the serendipity of the epic win, and they come at a natural break. So, achievement moments, I think, is something big, which, hopefully there will be a lot of experimentation around. But my experience really comes from 2009 on. I've been in digital ad sales for a long time, and, it was great, but, no one ever loved a lot of the programs I did because it was an ad at the end of the day. Until 2009, and I was lucky enough to be a part of integrating the movie Public Enemies into Mafia Wars. And that was a big moment for me in my career because it was the first time that I saw that users could love the presence of brands. I always kind of knew that people loved brands. If you were to take any group of folks and ask them, do you prefer Heinz ketchup over generic ketchup, they'll always go Heinz. So brands are well loved, but ads are hated, right? So even though I was selling advertising, I kind of, it was like a necessary evil until that moment in 2009 where we integrated into that game, and we did it in a way that focused on reaching the user, not when they're completely engaged, but at a natural break, and rewarding that achievement, that epic win, with a gift. We allowed, the great moments in the game to be rewarded with custom weapons from the movie, and it didn't feel like an ad, essentially. So what was really, there were a number of things that were amazing about that program, but I'd say that the top two were, number one, the usage of the game actually grew during the period. So it was a 1-week program, and the DAU spiked by 250,000 users during that integration. So I don't know all the numbers on your guys' side, but I assume that sometimes when ads are integrated, you lose some users. That didn't happen in this particular program. The other thing that was really fascinating is that there was an amazing amount of virality and discussion on Facebook around this program, which goes to that last point about viral advertising. So not only is it important to do something that reaches the user at the right time and doesn't ruin the epic win, in fact, it's important to do something that makes the epic win even better, because then people will talk about it, and that's what this sort of new medium of conversation has made available. So let's look at some things that have been done over time, and think about what I said earlier. So, I don't know if any of you remember Nintendo cereal, but that was a short-lived, I think it was around for 6 months. A lot of the monetization schemes around this time was all about branded product and doing stuff that wasn't in the game, but was tied to the game or was selling physical product around the game, right? So it got the part about not interrupting engagement right, but it wasn't really, we couldn't scale it, essentially. And there were a few options for people that didn't have the number one sort of, prop IP. So, here are some other schemes that have come about. I already kind of mentioned it, but take the third screenshot there, the logos in the game, right? I don't think that will scale, and the reason is because this user that's playing this game is not blinking, completely focused, ready to shoot their friends. They are paying as little attention as possible to those brands, right? And if you shrink the screen size down to mobile devices, it becomes even more insane. You guys probably won't even want to give up any real estate for a logo because it'll be the real estate is too valuable. So. That doesn't pass the smell test for me, in terms of reaching users at the right time. Here are some things that we've seen, which I think are going in that direction of being more interesting. So, some of these programs, and I'd be happy to discuss at the end. We could have done things like place an interstitial at the beginning to take people away from the game or force them into the experience, those types of things. But these branded experiences were unlocked through user activity. So essentially, the developer and the advertiser accepted the fact that we needed to do something that respected existing user activity and integrate the brand into that experience. So you take the Farmville example with McDonald's. McDonald's became a friend of every farmer in Farmville for a day. And if the user chose to visit the farm, they got this experience and they received gifts for completing this action. But they didn't have to go there. I mean, it was a completely user-initiated opportunity. And some of the other sort of in-game integration opportunities are extremely similar to that. So this passes the smell test in terms of engagement. It kind of passes it in terms of the epic win. I don't know if visiting a farm is an epic win, so not quite. But the real problem with this model has been that it's not scalable. It's only possible for the apps or games that have millions of users, and it requires a lot of development work for everyone involved. It's not easily repeatable. It's not scalable, but it does deliver great results, and it does kind of respect gaming. So we're seeing some of these things pop up in mobile as well. Getting users to change their activity for incentives. Banners that are essentially waving on the side. Again, they don't really pass the smell test in my mind. So the question is how is gaming going to capture the advertising dollars that are leaking away from other mediums where people are not spending their time anymore. So gaming, as you guys all know, is a huge part of mobile. So the money that's going to go to mobile could potentially go to gaming, and I think it will. But that's all the opportunity there, and it will go to, I believe, the opportunity that understands the medium it's in best. So. I know this as well because in my past experience with some of these programs, other partners offered incentives and banners and these types of things, and they ran a lot of programs for some brands, but they didn't drive nearly as much revenue for these developers because they didn't answer those questions that we talked about earlier in terms of driving enough impact and response because they understand user activity and they tie into the epic win. So, be it Power Mat, virtual items in my town when you reached a milestone, be it receiving free AW courtesy of the Microsoft Cloud and Godfinger, be it the mac and cheese tree reward in Farmville. These were all things that were unlocked through user activity that was native to the game. So we didn't ask users to change their activity. We didn't interrupt their activity. We allowed the activity to be completed, and then we provided a gift. So this is the integration model, and it's fantastic. I'm here to tell you today that the true opportunity is not this because it's not scalable. It's the company that's going to be able to build technology that allows this model to be repeated across, let's call it the long tail of gaming and the long tail of brands. I have an opinion on that because I work for a company that does that, but we can talk about that at another time. I don't want this to be biased. So speaking from my experience, I believe that this is the way that you cause your user base to love brands. And part of the way I know that is because that mac and cheese program right there, we actually had a mini revolt on Facebook because the program was run domestically only. But as you guys all know, Facebook is global and Farmville is global. So there were Swedes, Canadians, Danish people finding out about these cool gifts, and they wanted it too. So they actually went to the Nestle page and said, I can't believe you guys are discriminating against us. We love Nestle, we love Farmville, why aren't we getting mac and cheese trees? So we actually had to make the program global, and it wound up being a huge win because everyone loved the fact that Nestle was listening and Farmville was listening, right? So for me, it was really fascinating to think that people could actually care about a branded virtual item this much, but I swear to you, there were thousands of comments, if not hundreds of thousands of comments about programs like this. Here's another example. This was probably the theatrical campaign that embraced gaming more than anything between the Angry Birds program and between the Farmville program that was run. It was a cool program. It did all the things that we talked to you about in the beginning, but probably the best statistic from the advertiser perspective was that doing the advertising program in the right way, which was understanding user activity, not interrupting engagement, rewarding the user when they reached a milestone, drove huge results on opening weekend. So they actually did exit polling on opening weekend, and 60% of the people that showed up to Rio opening weekend cited gaming programs as the reason they came to the movie. So huge success. So we know gaming works. It's really just kind of comes down to getting brands involved in the right way and creating programs that really move your users. So I hope that what we can take away here is how do I help you guys evaluate the best vendors that can not only write you checks but also improve your user experience and cause your user base to love you for bringing brands into play. What's the future? I think we're gonna see more and more connections between virtual achievement and real-world achievement, between virtual prizes and physical prizes, as we start to learn what types of rewards and what types of messages your gamers respond to. The targeting is going to get better, and anything that we do needs to understand the importance of engagement and how to use engagement without interrupting engagement. So if we can succeed at doing all those things, I believe that gaming is poised to capture huge budget in the next few years because everyone is interested in gaming. Everyone's been on airplanes recently and seen that almost everyone is on their phone playing a game. It's become a mass market medium, which is great news. So I'll leave you with one last little snippet. So when the right technology is implemented and when the right programs are implemented with brands, we actually see, again, usage of the app grow rather than go down. So I don't know if this is going to make, I don't know who owns, the difference between paid and unpaid versions of apps. So this chart might not help the people that get the paid versions, but it will help people grow engagement, grow loyalty, and essentially, attract the best brands and the best programs. So, with that, I just wanted to leave it open to some questions and hear what the thoughts were. So, do we have any questions?
I actually have two. First of all, was the campaign you were talking about that was very successful with the free food?
Mm-hmm.
Did people know they were going to get free food when they reach a certain achievement?
No.
Did you advertise it? Was it a surprise?
It was a surprise.
And the second question to work off of that is, do you think users could be attracted to games if they know that there is such a reward coming to them if they accomplish something? Like if you actually advertised openly and said, hey, score like 1 million points and you get a free, hamburger or something like that.
That's a great question. I'm probably a little biased on that, but I believe that I believe that serendipity is valuable. I believe surprise and delight is really, really cool for users. And I believe that if you allow users to game the system or know a little bit too much, it takes some of the joy out of it. I don't know. I think it's open for debate, but I lean towards the serendipity side. I think it's better to allow your users to be surprised when they get something interesting.
I just have a question about the sales process when you're selling to the brands that are buying these, integrations. What levels of contact do you have? I mean, are you contacting, what level of an agency contact and what level of a brand contact? Can you help me out with that? 'Cause I know that I can't present this to a media buyer.
Right. Yeah. So it's difficult. So in theory, all the budget is at the media buying agency, like you said, right? And that's where you should go because that's where the money is. The problem is that media buying agencies, their job is to be efficient at buying banners. So this program to them looks like an operational inefficiency to a certain extent because they have to create something custom, right? And now it's like, okay, now I'm gonna have to spend some money to make something custom with you. And some folks are willing to do it, some aren't, right? You need a partner in that case that is interested in the payoff, which is award-winning, amazing results. But not everyone is willing to sign up for that. So you kind of need to go to the clients as well. You need both because you should only have to go to the media buying agency, but in my experience, you need to get client buy-in because media buying agencies have like a conflict of interest in doing some of these really innovative programs, unfortunately. No problem. Any other questions?
For those of us who were in the previous session, we talked a lot about the user experience relative to payment and taking people outside of the gaming experience. With something similar to this where you're engaging the player and you're asking them to redeem the Stouffer's mac and cheese, for example, how do you prevent the player from getting so far from the game and having to jump through hoops in order to enjoy the reward mechanism at that up-and-win moment?
Great question. So everything that I've worked on provides a follow-up opportunity for the brand that is at a later time. So I think the best programs give you the gift and allow you to keep playing the game. Great job, here's your gift. We're not going to ask you for any more at this moment. At a later time, we may send you an email or we may, message you or remind you of this program. In Facebook, you can maybe buy the right ads or something. That's what I tell brands, is that you're ruining the surprise and delight if you're asking users which love this game to click through to your website in order to get their reward. That's a terrible user experience. And you guys also don't want people leaving your game. So, I would definitely ask your partners to talk to you about how they keep users in your game, because I think that is absolutely the best for you. And frankly, I think it's best for the whole ecosystem because, when you're in the middle of a game, you really don't want to click through to an advertiser website. And it could ruin the gift that you just got. The thing I like to think of where you take like this model and you apply it to say something non-gaming related. I use the LA Times app a lot and I read, say 30 articles in a month and I get the paywall. That's a painful moment for me. Wouldn't it be amazing if a brand could swoop in at that moment and say, it's on us this month, and didn't ask me for anything more? I'd be like, wow, thanks Coke for paying for my reading this month. If you ask them for an immediate action at that moment, it kind of ruins it. So I think that like moment of joy and happiness that is great in gaming should be respected by not asking for immediate action. So that's a branding experience that big brands should be interested in. I mean, Coke's line is open happiness. So anyway, any other questions? Thanks a lot.